and I want to welcome you to the webinar today on Understanding Compliance Products from the Inside Out. We've spent a lot of time as part of our FreePint topic series, Compliance in Context, trying to help users understand the very wide range of products, resources, and techniques that are available to information professionals and to business trying to manage their regulatory compliance through the use of today's next generation information products. And in today's session, we're going to give you a peek behind the curtain at how many of these products are built and put together and refined for users that have a wide range of needs on the desktop. In our role at FreePint, one of the things that I've often found is that the more I understand about the way that vendors go about building products, the better I'm able to explain the best ways to apply those products to buy-side customers that come to me with questions about what should we be using and here are the different challenges that we have before us and how do we really make that use the most of the tools that are in front of us. It's one of those things that I think I'd like to see happen more often, for more users to have a closer understanding of what vendors are trying to accomplish when they build a product, because I think it really helps make everyone more informed and better buyer and user and influencer on those products and services that they bring into their organizations. I want to go over quickly what today's agenda is like and share a couple of housekeeping items before we dig into the topic with our moderator and our panelists. Everyone who is on the session today is in listen-only mode, which means you don't need to worry about background noise. There's nothing that's going to be overheard or picked up by this session, so that's a useful thing for the attendees on the session today. If you have questions that you'd like to raise during the session, please feel free to use the questions interface that exists in GoToWebinar. I'll be seeing those questions as the moderator, and I can choose to pass those on directly to a specific panelist and also insert them into the discussion as they may be relevant. We will also have time for Q&A towards the end, and any questions that have not already been answered through the session we'll be answering through the Q&A towards the end. But please feel free to use that question tab during the session in case something comes up as you're hearing somebody speak. You have the opportunity to ask that question right there while you're thinking of it. There's also a chat interface if you have something that you'd like to pass on to the panelists or to the group overall, something that you'd like to comment on, or just an observation to share. Please feel free to use that chat function. You can also send me a chat if you're having any kind of troubleshooting difficulties that you need some help with, and I'm happy to provide whatever assistance I might be able to provide through the chat function as well. You will be getting a copy of the deck that we're using today as part of the follow-up, and we are also recording today's session. There's quite a number of people who have told me that they're interested in the session, but the timing wasn't quite right for them. We always record webinars as a matter of course and make them available. You'll receive a copy of that link along with the deck today, and you can feel free to share that with colleagues, anyone else who might be interested who was not able to attend today. We'll be running through some introductions first so you can hear who is speaking with you today and some of their background and expertise. And they're going to be sharing a lot of discussion around their product development process, which we've developed through some iterative discussion and a rehearsal and work with our producer today that I'll be introducing in just a minute. As I mentioned, there is Q&A throughout as well as at the end of the session. And in follow-up, once you receive the follow-up materials, the deck and the other materials, the link to the recording, if you do have other questions for FreePint or for any of our panelists, please reply and we'll make sure that those get into the hands of the people that you have wanted to ask those questions of. I wanted to take a minute also to issue a very special thank you to the sponsors of the Compliance in Context series. We're able to provide a lot of resources through these series at no cost to registrants to webinars, to people who'd like to receive our buyer's guide reports with a lot of premium content in it, and that is made possible through the support of our sponsors. So very, very big thank you to them, and please let them know you appreciate them making available to you at no cost these resources. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our series producer, Andrew Lucas, who will also serve as the moderator for today's session. Andrew is a terrific professional that I've really enjoyed working on this series with over the last 6 months, that we've developed the content and sourced the reviews and worked with different companies in Q&A and through these webinars. He comes to us from a background in product strategy and development with a number of companies that many of the people on the call will be very, very familiar with. His background includes strategy, business development, and mergers and acquisitions, as well as content licensing and third-party distribution of content through platforms. And his expertise in the compliance area really gives us a great, not just moderator for today's discussion, but really an additional panelist, an additional set of expertise to bring forward in helping us understand how these products go from idea to conception to execution and really enhancing those products over time. He is currently working as a consultant with FinTech Partners, and I certainly hope that he will continue to be working with FreePint after this series concludes at the end of the month. And I will now pass it over to Andrew.
Thank you very much, Robin. Why explore product development? It's an area that I think is crucial to understand products for the users. In order to understand products and to get the best out of products, you really need to know how they've been put together. And certainly in my time with, as Robin has said, I was with Dow Jones, Reuters, Factiva, where I worked on business planning and strategy for risk and compliance products. And I saw at first hand the importance of product design and understanding customer workflow in creating really effective compliance products. The more that customers can become involved in the design of products, the more that you'll get out of those products. So hopefully from this session today, we will be hearing from three vendors and some of the ways in which they work with customers, and hopefully that will enable some of the listeners today, or some of the participants, to themselves become involved, more actively involved in how products are designed in the future. So if we could start by introducing our three excellent panelists today. First of all, we've got Neil Farquhar, who's been with Bureau van Dijk since 2011, following a 10-year career with Deloitte, where he managed their research tool portfolio. At Bureau van Dijk, Neil is the manager for the compliance products, particularly their product compliance catalyst. And as we go through these introductions, we'd like to give each of them a chance to actually talk or give a very quick overview of their principal offering in this space. So Neil, would you like to give us a quick overview of Compliance Catalyst?
Certainly, thank you very much. Well, Bureau van Dijk is a reputable information provider. We're well known for products like Orbis, Mint, and Fame. We have a global database, Orbis, which has over 120 million legal entities. We are already used by compliance clients because of our wealth of ownership and other corporate data, and also because of our software functionality. In creating the client onboarding workflow tool, Compliance Catalyst, Bureau van Dijk has combined its global data with PEP and sanctioned data specialist, World Compliance. Now, Compliance Catalyst helps organizations take an informed, risk-based decision on whether to accept potential new customers, suppliers, or other business partners.
Okay, thanks very much. So if we can move on to our next panelist, who is Tom Cosgrove, who's the Vice President of Risk Products at Alacra. And Tom's had a very illustrious career working with companies such as Thomson Reuters and Goldman Sachs Banking Data Group. And most recently, he was Vice President at the TUSA, Global Application Development Outsourcing firm. Tom, would you like to similarly give us a quick overview of the Alacra Compliance Enterprise product?
Sure. Alacra Compliance Enterprise is our platform that we use to build our compliance and KYC workflow tools on behalf of our customers. Alacra is a bit different in the space in that we are content agnostic. We work with many of the partners that you're going to hear from today from a content perspective, and we offer our customers the opportunity to really pick best in breed as it relates to content. We really focus our efforts on the workflow and helping firms improve the way that they manage KYC from a regulatory perspective, from a throughput perspective, and from an oversight perspective. And really our goal is to continue to work with, again, the vendor partners you're hearing from today to continue to build out this tool set.
Okay, thank you very much there. So we can move on to finally, but by no means least, to Jorge Montana from Perfect Information. Jorge has had a career specializing in AML and KYC, and he's done extensive experience in the banking industry. And he's now, as I say, working with Perfect Information. So, Jorge, would you like to tell us about the Perfect Information solution?
Sure, thank you. Well, Perfect Information has gone through the advisory route, where we are working with our existing clients and future clients to bespoke a tailored solution for their specific client onboarding requirements, but also the industry they belong to, the regulatory requirements that apply. And we are working with them to create a workflow that allows us to work always with them so that we can, or sorry, they can partially or fully outsource the client onboarding process, but with an end goal of providing not only the information of a risk existing in the client they want to accept, but more importantly, what to do to mitigate that risk, or what would be the best procedure to accept that client and make sure that the risk that they represent to your organization is managed in the best way possible.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's our panelists. So if we can move to the first topic for today's discussion, and that's who's on your team. Building good products, you need good people, and I think it's interesting for us to hear from the three panelists about the sorts of people that they have working on their product development teams. So if we can run through the three of each of them first, and then we'll perhaps open up and talk about some of the themes that emerge from that. So Jorge, can we start with you again? Can you tell us a little bit about who are the sorts of people you have working in your product development team?
Sure. Well, as I have previously stated, Perfect Information has gone through the consultative route, and therefore the people that are important for us in our development team are the AML consultants that we work with. Not every one of our clients have the resources and capability of having both an AML team with the advisory and also a team of analysts who can perform the client onboarding process. So we have a team of AML consultants working with us so we can give that advisory capacity to our clients. We also have researchers very experienced in AML and KYC purposes, and they are the actual team that will be doing the searches or conducting the searches that are outsourced from our clients to ourselves. And then lastly, we have our ICT developers, who are the guys who make our dreams and ideas true. They basically put all of our thoughts into practice, and we create workflows thanks to the input of the AML consultants, the researchers' experience on how to go around the specific process that the client wants to outsource, and finally, the ICT team who makes everything happen.
Thank you. Tom, would the Alacra team be similar to that, or how would it differ?
It would differ slightly in that we have been historically much more workflow and software led. We've been building workflow solutions for financial institutions for over 15 years. And what we've added to that software experience is a combination of industry practitioners and product development professionals. We've also gone out and added to our staff folks that are CAM certified, which is part of the ACAM certification process. So we're very focused on the user experience, and we tend to bring in resources that are very close to the user base. And obviously, we lay on top of that our software engineering prowess to be able to, again, provide workflow that's targeted at the specific areas of the banks that we're working with.
So how important is it to you to have people from a compliance background on the team?
It's really important because at the end of the day, we're serving the analysts that are actually doing the KYC and the onboarding work, and we need to echo back to them in our workflow the tools that they need to get their job done. And as many of the listeners will know, the pressure is building on those teams to do much more with less in the way of resource. So workflow becomes really important to generating that throughput.
Thank you. Neil, what about Bureau van Dijk? Do you have compliance specialists in your team there?
Well, we've got a very diverse team with very complementary skill sets. We're not Aml Consultants, but we are data specialists, and we have been for over 30 years. I mean, the key thing that we try to deliver, other than top-range data, is a good workflow solution and a product with good customization. When I talked about having a diverse team, well, our Chief Technical Officer is directly involved in our compliance product. He ensures that everything works technically, and he also actually challenges our technical development team to make sure that not only are we taking advantage of all the options available, but we're also exploring new technology as well. We have, in addition to that, a series of senior product consultants who have a wealth of experience within Bureau van Dijk building products. We have quite a large range of, or suite of products, and we have many, many years of experience in building and maintaining those products. In terms of liaison, that's me. I mean, I'm a product manager. However, I guess my key role is actually being the middleman between clients and the development team, the product team. Coming from a client background rather than from just Bureau van Dijk, I can bring the client perspective and also an understanding of workflow. I also have an additional role in terms of liaising with all of the BVD sales and marketing teams, just to ensure that feedback is delivered to our development teams, and also to discuss key messaging and internal training.
Do you think the qualities that you require in your compliance product team differ from other products, or would it be the same set of product development skills that you would use across all products?
Well, I think you have to have one standard, and that standard is to exceed expectations and to be as good as you can. Over the last 10, 20 years, the information world has changed markedly. Gone are the days of having very researcher-driven products. Now everything is on the desktop. Everything is quicker. Gone are the days of the horribly slow dial-up. Everything is now, everybody wants the information yesterday, and we have to concentrate on actually delivering that information in a format that the client wants as fast as we can, in a reliable way.
Thanks, Dad. We probably should move on to the next topic, which is how do you engage with customers? Obviously, one of the most important tasks in building any workflow application is understanding the customer requirements. Again, Neil, staying with you, how important is customer input into the design of the BVD compliance products?
Well, customers are absolutely key to our product development. When I joined Bureau van Dijk in 2011, the first thing we did is actually go out and interview existing clients and prospects to get a wish list to determine exactly how our new compliance product should work, what features, what data should actually be within that. We have a constant dialogue. It's no good just going away with one set of ideas. The marketplace and the compliance requirements that our clients have are constantly evolving, so we actually have to have a constant dialogue with these ML KYC specialists.
And Tom, would the Alacra experience differ from Neil's description of the Bureau van Dijk process of working with customers?
No, it's very similar. Actually, my role is similar to Neil's in that I'm responsible for doing customer development-led product planning, meaning that we're constantly engaging with our customers. And we've actually taken the tact of hosting industry-led specific breakout sessions. And what I mean by that is we'll host these sessions and we'll throw a topic out, but it's really for the customers to come in and discuss their needs. And that's become really critical for us because since it is client-led, the discussion focuses on their most important issues. And that's been a critical way for us to gather client feedback on how to prioritize the activities that we have on our product roadmap. Some examples of that is we hold some FACA breakout sessions. We held some sessions on FCPA. And all of that has been client-led. And we're almost like the fly on the wall listening to what the challenges are. And that's been really helpful for us in terms of the way we engage with customers and the way, again, we prioritize our product pipeline.
Okay. Okay. I mean, we heard from you earlier that Perfect Information customizes each client installation, so you're always in a dialogue with clients about their requirements, and that's something we'll come back to later in this session. But do you still seek user input into your core offering, the components that make up the building blocks of the service?
There are some elements that are core, yes. For example, what Dijk is really good at and what we have excelled with in the last 3 years is corporate record retrieval. That's where we began, and that's what we are, I have to say, one of the best providers out there in regards of the countries we can get information for and the type of documents we can get in these countries. So that element is going to be the core element of all of the solutions that we tailor for our clients, because that's where we can really excel, and that's what we believe it should be criteria number one really in the future for AML and KYC. Workflow is great, processes are also very important, but what we believe is essential here is to have actual original corporate records to validate any other future information that you might find or establish. So yes, there is always going to be this core element in all of the solutions that we design, which is the corporate records for the companies investigated.
And do you talk to clients about the sorts of content, the sorts of corporate records that they require, or do you have that database of corporate records, and you just recut it for the different products?
Well, we have a database, as you said, of document availability per jurisdiction, where we can cover this for 200 countries. So immediately, if any of our customers were to say that they are onboarding clients from the Middle East, we can go back to our database and we can immediately let them know the type of corporate records available in that jurisdiction, or more importantly, the type of information that they need to obtain if corporate records are not available. But as I was saying, we go through the advisory route, so we would always advise our clients which are the required corporate records for the jurisdiction they are investigating. However, at the end of the day, it has to be the client with its industry-related regulations or standards who make the call of saying, yes, let's go ahead and get the articles of association for every business that we onboard, because we do want to verify specific elements that are only contained in these documents. So we will always advise, but it is them who has to make the call at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you for that. There's a question that perhaps I can throw out to all the panelists. What's the most helpful way that you can get input from users? If your customers want to provide feedback or input into new products, what's the best way for them to do that? Anybody want to volunteer some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll take a crack at that. I think the key thing is staying engaged with your customers, and this is Tom Cosgrove speaking. And in my role, I really take customer development quite seriously, and I constantly try to get out of the office and talk to our end users. And it's there that the great ideas come through, because those are the folks that are actually in the trenches trying to get through a mountain of investigative work. And it's they who actually have identified some of the key bits of functionality we've added to our workflow to really support what they do on a daily basis. So getting out of the office, engaging with customers, as I mentioned earlier, having industry-led discussions, those are really, I think, the key things to continually engage with your customers. And then there are other things such as, creating a product team that would allow you to go out and solicit information from your users at various levels, both your buyers as well as your end users. I think those are really important stakes as well, because at all of our customers we have multiple stakeholders, and getting a rounded view from those stakeholders is really, really important.
Okay, Neil, how do you like to gather your input or to get feedback from the clients?
Again, without the risk of appearing to give the same answer, yeah, the client is key. It's about getting out and meeting and speaking with clients, and not only just understanding theory of their workflow and how they work and what data they require, but actually how they're using the product and making sure that in the real world that our product is actually aligned to that.
Okay. And Jorge, any additional thoughts, or were you pretty much in alignment with?
I think I'm pretty much aligned. The only thing I would add is that there is always a need for input from our end users or from our clients, because the AML or the client onboarding solution should be a solution that is in constant review. And it's just from the feedback from the users of those solutions how we can improve them. And at the end of the day, if we don't get that input, we will only pay attention to regulations and not to the actual practicality of the users who are onboarding clients with our solutions.
Yeah. Okay, well that's some very interesting answers there. Perhaps we can now move on to the next topic, which is staying relevant in a changing regulatory environment. And I think, as we're all too well aware, compliance is a very fast-moving sector, particularly at the moment, with a constantly developing regulatory framework. And I know one of the articles we published in the series, Thomson Reuters was quoted as saying the number of regulatory alerts increased by 25% last year to over 17,000. So products need to be kept up to date, and I think it'd be interesting to hear from the three vendors who are with us today about hear some examples from them of how they've adapted products to meet these regulatory changes. Tom, would you like to start? Could you tell us, or perhaps give us some examples of how you've updated the products to keep up to date with regulatory change?
Sure. We do try to look at the impact of various legislation on our products and make sure, again, that we're staying current. But I'll go back to the specific example of FATCA. What we did with FATCA was we started hosting breakfast series very early on after the announcements were made and things were starting to firm up from a regulatory perspective. And we included in those sessions both folks who were very interested on the process side, so more from the operations side, but also those who were helping to translate and formulate the policy, so folks from the MLRO offices. And having a combination of folks from operations and from policy setting really helped us really frame out what we needed to achieve within our workflow from a FATCA perspective, and gave the clients an opportunity to exchange freely ideas with each other so they could learn from each other from a best practices perspective. So that's an example of how we do try to stay on top of the changing regulatory climate while making it practical to how our clients are using our tools.
Okay, how proactive are Perfect Information in making these sorts of changes, or do you wait to hear from customers before making a change?
Well, actually, regulation monitoring is an added value part of our service. All of the solutions that we sell to our clients or that we tailor for our clients are in constant review. That, for us, that's the advantage of having that AML consultant team working with us within our building. So we are constantly monitoring the industries that we work for, the regulators, the watchdogs, and any updates that appear. We're constantly monitoring them so that immediately we can go back to our clients and we can update the solutions they have, because, and I think all of the panelists will agree with me today, being out of date is simply not an option in AML or KYC matters. and therefore we have to constantly review the solutions that are out there that we have designed and make sure that they are updated if necessary.
Okay. Neil, how quickly can Bureau van Dijk respond to change?
Very quickly. I mean, we pride ourselves with our knowledge of the regulatory environment. Although it's a big challenge to keep on top of, we do our very best. I speak with clients on a very regular basis. One very good example that we have is this year we brought on board a new client who's a financial institution, and we actually worked side by side with their operations team, their risk management team, in order to develop the product setup which mimics and actually delivered all the key elements of their risk assessment model. So, and the one thing that you never struggle to get in the compliance environment is constant feedback, and we've actually had constant feedback, and we are continually looking to develop the product in terms of content and in terms of usability as well.
And would you engage with regulators to see what's coming down the track?
Well, we do our very best to engage with regulators. We have had discussions recently and actually contributed towards a discussion document. However, some regulators are easier to speak to than others. I know they're under great pressure in terms of their workload, and also the ability to, they don't want to appear biased in favor of one vendor over another, so they have to appear to be very even-handed.
Tom, what about Alacra? Would you work with regulators or try and work with regulators?
We would and we do, and as was previously stated, they do create a very fine line between providing information and providing guidance, because again, they don't want to be seen as providing an edge over one vendor for another. So what we found helpful is it's really engaging with the MLRO community, because those are the folks inside of our clients who are really translating the policy into operational activity. And from our perspective, that's really where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. We do try to engage with the regulators and will, as I said earlier, host some of these sessions, but it's really where the MLROs are translating that regulatory change into a policy that I think really affects our client base.
Okay. And Jorge, have you anything to add to that? What's your experience?
I think all of the panelists have very good answers to this question. There's a very thin line about the information the regulators wanna disclose, but I completely agree with the fact that it is the MLR officers who are taking regulation and making it an operation or a process. So it is really keen more to speak with the MLR officers rather than speak with the regulators. Although having said that, there is a specific case where we have had to go and meet the regulator of a specific industry here in the UK, because there was a belief within their members that they were doing everything that was required for the acceptance of their clients. However, the regulator did not agree, that they were not giving out information of what would be the best way. So we got together with the members of this organization. We went and meet the regulator, and we're trying to find the best practice that for a client acceptance process for that specific industry, which the regulators saw with good eyes.
So they responded positively to that approach?
Yes, because at the end of the day, once they understood that what we were trying to do was helping their members become more compliant, but also understanding how it has to be practical. It's just not a matter of asking your members to have all of the information available for a client just for the sake of having it. The question was, what do I really need to have to make sure I am compliant, and what can I avoid having so that I can be more cost efficient and so that I can offer better products, better solutions at best prices to the clients of my industry. Simple as that.
Sorry, was somebody going to make a comment there? Possibly not. Moving on then, I mean, another aspect of staying relevant to regulatory change is obviously it becomes even more of a challenge when you're working across multiple jurisdictions. And Neil, I know Bureau van Dijk has offices in I think more than 30 countries. do you have to monitor the regulatory environment across all those countries in which you're selling your products?
You have to have a strong awareness of the different environments that our clients work in. However, it's not as easy as that. I mean, we've got, I think, 33 offices in probably about 24 countries. We work with clients in different sectors. However, you can look at 2 law firms in the same jurisdiction, similar footprint, similar services offered, and they might have a very different appetite for risk and very different risk checks that they undertake. They also might have very different existing systems that they want to incorporate into that as well. So it is an absolute challenge. It's something that we are very pleased with in our product. That is probably the biggest challenge in building our product, was the fact that you could actually build something that is customizable enough that can actually give all of these different types of clients with different requirements something that they need. I mean, within our products, you can have a simple model that's very standardized and off the shelf with all the standardized checks, but you can actually pretty much off the shelf as well also build in as much complexity as you wish through building additional custom processes. And of course, we have the additional option of web services if our clients need that data content integrated into their internal systems.
Thank you. Now, the 3 companies represented here today are European and US companies. Asia is obviously offers great growth opportunities, and compliance is obviously increasingly important in many of the Asian markets. Are there particular challenges for companies who are not resident in those markets in building successful compliance products? Tom, have you got any thoughts on that?
I do. Our clients are global, so we're serving end users that are in North America, that are in Europe, and that are in Asia. And the way that we've architected our product is such that we can create localized business rules for each of those jurisdictions. So there are nuances from country to country, whether it be data protection rights or whether it be the minimum compliance criteria. And what we've found is by creating a baseline within our product and creating the flexibility and the customization to allow for localized business rules, we've been able to satisfy the needs of those of our clients who have global requirements. Many times what our clients will do is they will have a centralized processing facility in Asia where the analysts are actually doing the work for the global regulatory regimes, meaning that those same analysts are actually processing the requirements of North America and Europe. So therefore we need to, in the workflow, reflect the localized business rules from each of those jurisdictions. And I think, again, being client-led is really key to our success here, because it's the clients that know the localized regimes, and those are the folks that we're satisfying the processing requirements of.
Thanks, Glenn. Well, we probably should move on now to the last topic today, which is workflow design, standard features versus customization. Because compliance products tend to be workflow applications on the whole, they often require customization. And the sort of thing we wanted to explore here is how do you get the balance right between the amount of standardization and the amount of customization. And Jorge, if I can start with you, I mean, as we heard earlier, all of Perfect Information's implementations are customized. But you do that around a set of standard product components. Can you tell us roughly what is the percentage of customization to standardization in a typical installation?
I think it's safe to say that a standard would be a 50-50. That is a good starting point, or a good average of how we come around working with our clients. There, as we were describing earlier, this corporate records element is very important, and in some cases it can represent the biggest use of resources for the client onboarding process. You do need other tools, databases, some of them which are present in this panel today, but in reality, where the real resources are spent is actually collecting records. For example, as you were describing earlier, market of Asia, collecting documents for a business which is registered in Thailand. That's not easy. That's not cheap either. And that's the main element which we maintain throughout all of the solutions that we spoke. So although there might be solutions that we incorporate a much larger element of tailoring than in others, I have to say that on average is 50%, because with these corporate records, and I keep emphasizing how important it is, with this corporate records element, you have the beginning, you have the foundations of your following checks, because you have accurate, reliable, original, and in some cases, if you need certified or information, which you then can use to run searches, to run checks, or to verify information in other databases available. But for us, it's so important, and we keep making that emphasis with our clients. It is so important to have a starting point of corporate records, so that your searches that are performed afterwards are accurate and reliable. So with this corporate records element, we have 50% of what of the core element of our workflow.
Okay, so that's interesting to hear that. Neil, with Bureau van Dijk and the Compliance Catalyst product, obviously it's much more of a standardized product, but you clearly do customize it. So would that sort of 50-50 percentage be very different for your customers?
I don't actually think you can break it down into one simple 50-50 measurement. It's very much determined on the local market, how mature the compliance function is in that particular market, and also the individual risk appetite of our individual customers. We have, as you know, a large footprint in many different countries, and so you would obviously say that with markets that are less mature, that are pretty much just coming to the party in terms of compliance, it would be more of a standardized approach. However, we find that in the more mature markets with more rigorous legislation in place, of course, the level of customization is much greater.
Okay. Tom, Alacra, obviously one of your key selling points is the range of third-party content that you're able to make available. How much of that are you able to customize? Are you able to mix content sets together, or to take on new content sets specifically that customers have requested?
That's really one of the core functionalities that Alacra has always provided for our customers. We have access to over 200 different databases used by our financial services customers. And the benefit that we have in our approach is that we've taken the approach of platforming our software and then providing the flexibility of the client to choose the data sets. As a result of that, I would say for our product set, it's probably 90-10. 90% of our customers are using our standardized platform with a set of configurations around sources and workflow. And 10% of our customers are sort of standalone bespoke implementations. And that's been a purposeful change that we've made. We wanted to baseline our product, and we looked at the Salesforce model and thought that was one that was really compelling, because as we add new content sets, as we add new functionalities, all of our customers benefit from that. Now, they don't need to take those modules on if it's functionality that they don't need for their workflow. But as we add it, we enrich the platform, all of our customers benefit. And that's been, as I said, a process that took us about 2 years to create the level of flexibility in our implementation. So now we can add a new customer in a matter of weeks, which would include configuring for them the sources they need access to, working with our vendor partners, and then taking their business rules and implementing those in the workflow. So it's that approach that's really allowed us to become very nimble in terms of adding new customers.
Okay, thanks very much for that. I think we're probably almost approaching the time for questions. Perhaps just one last thing I can ask you before we go into questions from the listeners. And this is sort of addressed to anyone who's got any thoughts on this. Do you get requests from customers that you just don't think make sense? And how do you tell the customer that? Has anyone had that experience?
I think we all three are probably smiling because I think we all get requests from customers from time to time that don't seem either core to the workflow that we're building or the products that we're building. And I think the way to communicate that to the customer is identify whether it is truly a piece of bespoke functionality that the client needs, and then share with them the fact that it is bespoke, because we have the opportunity to look across the various clients and really come up with a best-of-breed approach. And that best-of-breed approach should be something that the clients look to us for. Having said that, if it's a piece of functionality that a client is on the leading edge for or the bleeding edge for, what I like to do is go back and talk to a number of other customers and see if it makes sense. If it makes sense for 2, 3, 4 customers, then this client may be on the bleeding edge, in which case you want to engage with them and make sure you bring that into your process.
Okay. Any of the others got some? Neil, okay, have you had that experience?
This is Neil from Bureau van Dijk. It does happen, but it's very, very infrequent. Of course, when we get new requests in, we always speak with other clients just to determine how commercial and how useful that type of individual implementation is to the broader audience of our products. And if there is an appetite and an interest for that development, then we actually go off and do it.
Okay. Any thoughts?
For us, again, emphasizing on what we are really strong at is the corporate records. We do receive loads of requests to implement or to tailor the solutions around the availability of corporate records. And I say they are very interesting for us because our audience is mainly in the UK. And I guess the members of this panel are aware that in the UK, there's loads of information available for companies, shareholders, directors, annual returns, accounts, there's everything. But when you go into other jurisdictions, this information is not always available. So trying to verify the ownership of a company through corporate records, there's some cases where it's just simply not available. And our clients keep asking for it. They keep asking us to implement that process into the workflow, and we just have to always explain them that, yes, corporate records are available, but not the same way in every country.
Okay, well, thanks very much for that. I think we're now moving to questions from the listeners. And the first question I've got here is from an information manager stroke buyer. We have our own ideas and end users have their own preferences. How do these vendors incorporate both sets of needs, and who gets to prioritize, the user or the information center? Also, what do you do when you discover that what the users think they want isn't really what they want, or isn't going to create compliance? And I suppose that sort of leads on from our last topic of discussion there. Tom, have you got any thoughts on that question? If you want me to read it again, I'll happily do it.
I think I understand the gist of it, and I do have some thoughts on it in terms of the way Alacra's business works. Because we are content agnostic, oftentimes the clients will give us a laundry list of sources that they think they need for their workflow, for either KYC or onboarding. And oftentimes what we do is we provide some guidance in terms of what the bare minimum of content they need to bring into the workflow is. Now, having said that, oftentimes what we experience is users think they've got global licenses to the data that they're using in a bespoke way, and in reality they've not gotten the right licensing in place to be able to use that across group. So that's an example where we have to go back to the user community, educate them as to what the licensing requirements are, and really be a good partner for our vendor partners, and then have them go back and work with the vendor partners to solicit the right licensing requirements. And it is a bit of a dance in that we certainly want to be content agnostic, and we do proceed that way, but we do understand what the baseline requirements are, so we can provide some guidance and some consultancy up front in terms of looking at the licenses they have in place and then configuring that into our workflow.
Thank you. Neil, have you anything to add to that?
I think it splits into two. One is data and one is systems. With data, I mean, our aim is to work with the best information provider in each jurisdiction or for each data type. That's end of. That's what we do. In terms of customization, the Compliance Catalyst product is an off-the-shelf product. However, it is highly customizable, and therefore the client can actually build in all the checks that they require based on any of the information fields within our global database, within any of the fields available which is provided from World Compliance for PEPs and sanctions, and they can also build in various different risk variables based on their own information. For example, they might be onboarding or accepting a client, and they might want to include the product they're selling them, and that might actually determine the risk level. So yeah, system and data.
Okay, and I think perhaps I would add on that question. I mean, I guess it's really for the customer to resolve any conflicts they might have between the buying centre and the users, rather than perhaps for the vendors to decide what the customer wants. Okay, moving on to the next question. I want to be part of a customer engagement feedback, but I feel like my input goes into a black hole. Why is that? Okay, is that something you recognize, the sort of thing you've heard from your customers?
It is something that I can understand, but it's not something that we experience here at Dijk, because the nature of our tailored or bespoke solution does not allow for that. For us, it's extremely important to get the input of our customers at every level, starting from the MLRO officer, going down to the AML analyst, or even in some cases, the partners of the banks or law firms that we work for, who are based in a completely different side of the world to where the head office is, and they have their own difficulties on how to begin a client acceptance process, and it is many times the client relationship partners, which are in the other side of the world, who begin the client acceptance process, who have given us, in many cases, suggestions or input on what they believe is maybe not an efficient process, or in some cases they have even suggested alternatives with their knowledge of their of the jurisdiction where they are based, in the knowledge of what alternatives of information are available, and we always collect that feedback. We go back to our main contact in our client's office, and we present what we are currently doing, as opposed to what any member within their organization has suggested could be done. And then we have a very polite and engaging discussion with our customers to see if that's a change that we want to implement, or if that's something that the organization is not considering to implement. So for us, communication, very important.
Thanks very much. Well, I'm going to squeeze one last question in, because it's almost time to wrap up. And it's a very good question. What are you, the panelists, most excited about for your next round of developments? Neil, what's BVD? What exciting developments have you got coming along?
Well, we've just actually had a recent release which has incorporated some really nice features that our clients have been speaking about and requesting within our products. We have another release around Christmas time with further enhancements. I think the bottom line is we're as an information provider, it's an absolute given that we're striving for the best possible data. However, what we want to also deliver with that is the best value out of that data and the best usability. And it's actually then building up that relationship, and actually going back to the last question, the engagement with clients, it's an ongoing process. It's not through one request and then that request is dealt with and it's over with. It's actually ongoing. It's about managing priorities, and it's about communicating with those clients as well, so they know what you're working on, and they know that their ideas might not be top of the list of things that might be added in the product, but they are being listened to and they are a valuable resource for that.
Okay, Tom, what are you excited about?
Well, I think the thing that excites me the most is really the pace of change and the ability for us to actually accelerate things that were on our roadmap. And what I mean by that is now that we've platformed our approach and our rules engine can be applied to lots of different challenges like FATCA, for example, what we're seeing is we're actually accelerating things that have been on our roadmap because clients are taking them up sooner rather than later. I think the other thing I'd say that gets me excited is we're starting to see activity outside of what traditionally would have been our client base, because there are other industries that are starting to take a good look at the way that they manage their client base. And whether it's vendor vetting or whether it's working with some of the large energy companies, we're beginning to use the same workflow and the same toolkit and the same products to really increase our footprint outside of core financial services. And I think that's really exciting for us because we're getting some interesting perspectives from some of those other industries.
Okay, thanks very much. And Jorge, you probably only got 30 seconds worth, or 60 seconds, but what are you excited about?
I'm excited about all of the above, really. I mean, this is an ever-changing industry, world, and we just want to make sure that we are on top of the curve, and let's see what the changes in the next few years, how are they implemented in the practicality of the KYC and AML world.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Okay, Tom, Neil, I think we've had some very interesting responses from all of you, and hope it's been interesting for those listening in. And I'll hand back to Robin.
Thank you so much to Andrew and to all of our panelists today for a really interesting backroom look at what goes into the products that so many people rely on to maintain something that's incredibly critically important to so many businesses, which is regulatory compliance. I want to thank you again to our generous sponsors who enable us to make sessions like this available to participants at no cost. We also have a buyer's guide report which is coming out at the beginning of next week, which is also supported through our sponsors. And again, a thank you to them for that. There are opportunities to have additional questions answered. If there was something that you wanted to know that didn't get raised or answered in this session, please feel free to send me a request and I'll get it passed along. As I mentioned, you will get a link to the recording as well as the deck that we went over today, and I do encourage you to learn more about all of our panelists' companies, and the URLs for those will be provided in that follow-up. As a Director of Research for FreePint, I thank you again for attending and welcome any questions, comments that you might have about our programming so that we can continue to improve the sessions for your needs in the future. Thanks so much again to Andrew, and enjoy the rest of your day.